Now, do be warned before we get started here, there are going to be some major spoilers ahead for the latest episode of the Ahsoka series, that being part 7. So if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want anything ruined, it is a really good time to click away. Alright, so I think most fans will probably agree with me here when I say that Baylan Skoll has not only been one of the best and most interesting characters in the Ahsoka series, but arguably one of the best, maybe even the best, new characters in the Disney era of Star Wars. And though, sure, a lot of that I think simply has to do with the performance given by the late Ray Stevenson, that he has brought this sort of weight or gravitas to the character, that there is just something about him, about the actor, that seems perfectly suited for this role. Not unlike how I thought Giancarlo Esposito was perfectly suited to play Moff Gideon, that he too was a very interesting and charismatic character, until Season 3 of The Mandalorian turned him into almost literally a mustache-twirling villain. But anyway, setting that aside, as I was saying, I think most people find Baylan and his story to be the most interesting part of the series overall, and I think there were a few very simple reasons for that, with one of the main ones being that he's a brand new character, who is after what seems to be a brand new thing, and that he has, well, not exactly clear motivations, but we know that he's motivated to a large degree, I'd say, by the failure of the Jedi Order, and he wants to do something almost in response to that. He seems to want to create something new and something better than that. And so the thing is, with him being, again, a brand new character in a show that, for better or worse, is kind of filled with previously seen or used characters, some of which we would even call legacy characters at this point. Anyway, with him being new, with no past or future of any kind known to us that the story has to beholden him to, well, it obviously means we have absolutely no idea if he'll succeed or fail. We have absolutely no idea where he'll be when the season ends, or if he'll even still be alive. I mean, I didn't even know if he'd necessarily live through this most recent episode. I thought he probably would, but it wasn't a certainty. Not after we saw Ahsoka kind of powering up during what was essentially a training montage at the beginning, complete with a pep talk from Anakin. I actually got a little nervous that she was going to defeat and kill Baylan, that despite all the mystery around him, he'd be little more than a sort of stepping stone for her to show how far she'd come. She needed to defeat a superior opponent, one she had lost to previously. And it was, I gotta say it, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one to learn that despite all of that, despite her near-death experience as a result of, again, being beaten by Baylan the first time around, which then led to her seeing Anakin and resolving all these many issues she has around him. Anyway, despite it being set up by the story for her to win this rematch, it was a surprise to see her basically lose to Baylan, in a manner of speaking. Yes, she stole his howler, so he couldn't theoretically join the battle if he wanted to, but she does acknowledge she couldn't beat him, that he was, again, the superior opponent. And though their duel wasn't particularly long and or grandiose, it was good, mind you, but nothing amazing. It won't go down as one of the most visually awesome saber fights in the history of Star Wars or anything like that. It was still probably the most interesting fight of the show because it was pretty much the only time we couldn't easily predict the ending, that there was at least a chance a character might die. That, of course, being Baylan, Ahsoka's plot armor is much too thick to be killed, maybe ever, I don't know, with Dave Filoni. And that then leads to probably the biggest issue with the show, that there is no possible way she is going to be killed, or maybe I should say stay dead. Nor will Ezra and Sabine die, and nor will Thrawn die or probably be stopped. Not that I think he should be. He should get the win here to set him up. But it's always felt like a foregone conclusion that he was going to survive and make it back to the other galaxy. And so basically the problem is that there doesn't feel like there is 1 ounce of tension in the show, or one thing that we couldn't more or less predict the outcome of going into it even, or anything that has really surprised us, other than, again, perhaps Baylan Skoll and everything around him. He, along with Shin, have been sort of wild cards in the story. They've been the most interesting part of the story because there has been an actual new and unpredictable story with them. Not a foregone conclusion for a bunch of characters with plot armor to eventually reach. And sure, we don't know exactly how the finale will end up. We don't know if our heroes will make it back to the other galaxy or get stuck in this one. I'm not saying absolutely everything is known to us or is 100% predictable. But if the show really wanted to surprise us, I think it'd have to do one of 2 things in this upcoming finale, neither of which I think it has the guts to do. But it'd either have to kill Thrawn off and set up this unknown power along with Baylan, who is serving it perhaps. It'd have to set them up as the real threat to the Mandoverse time period. That Thrawn was almost this sort of red herring the whole time. which, yes, might anger quite a few fans that he was so easily defeated and that he was teased to be more than he ended up being. But considering I'm not so sure they're going to get him right anyway, that we're going to get the Thrawn we really want, that just like in Rebels, he's constantly going to go up against the heroes with plot armor and lose but claim it's a win of some kind regardless, or that it sets him up for victory down the road, just like he said basically in this episode, and just like he constantly said in Rebels. But anyway, considering how unlikely it is that they'll get Thrawn right, or that fans will be happy with whatever version of him we get, maybe you don't use him as the big main antagonist, and instead you give us something else. You throw us a curveball, and it's, again, actually Baylan who's the big villain that must be stopped. Which, yes, does come with a problem, that being, of course, the passing of Ray Stevenson. But there is, of course, the possibility of recasting him. It could even be implied, depending on what exactly this power even is, that it somehow changes or transforms him, and that explains why a new actor is now playing the character. I think we'd all understand, all of us fans would understand and be forgiving if they made such a choice, or if they just decided to recast him with no sort of story explanation why the actor is different. We would all get it and begrudgingly accept it because, yeah, Ray Stevenson has very much owned the role, and it's hard to imagine anyone else in it. And though I certainly can't speak for Ray Stevenson, but he was excited for people to see this character, so I really doubt he'd want the character to come to an end just because of, again, what unfortunately happened to him. The other thing you could do in order to kind of shock us or surprise us with something we just don't think they'd ever be willing to do is to kill off Ezra in the finale, or have him once again have to sacrifice himself, and for real this time, where he gives his life to try and stop Thrawn. This would then, again, shock us, I think. But it would also rather harshly teach Sabine the lesson Anakin also once struggled to learn. That sometimes you have to let go and instead do what is expected of you, or what is right, which Sabine did not do when she risked the return of Thrawn to find Ezra. Again, it's rather harsh, and I'd be shocked if they went there. And yeah, some fans would again be upset that we waited so long to find Ezra only for him to die. But it would be a very Star Wars-like ending, because there's almost always this bittersweet element to the endings in this franchise, or sometimes just flat-out bad endings, where the bad guys, I should say, win. It's rare to ever get a truly happy ending in Star Wars, which is kind of fitting, because in life there's usually not a 100% happy ending, is there? There's always a cost to everything. And so I think something has to happen in this finale to shock us. Something needs to make us say, I never saw that coming. And honestly here, though, yeah, I have enjoyed the show, and I absolutely wanted the story about the hunt for Ezra that the Rebels epilogue teased us with all those years ago. I'm glad we got this show, or a continuation of that story. But my biggest takeaway from this show is that, one way or another, Star Wars needs to do new stuff with brand new characters. That sure, a story can be interesting when you know the end, or know characters won't or can't die because of who they are, or you already know their endpoint in the story, that they have to die later on, or they're a part of this or that story, so they can't have something really bad happen to them in this one, or you just know the writer won't kill them. But as I was saying at the top, Baylan has been the best character not just because of Ray Stevenson, though yes, that's a part of it, but because he's new and different. He is after something mysterious, and we don't know if he's going to succeed in finding it or not. And we don't know what'll happen after he does possibly find it. His fate is completely up in the air, and that is exciting. More so than watching characters we know can't or won't die get into fights where they always get shot in the Beskar armor, or where they duck lightsaber attacks at just the right second, or get pulled away, or has a ship that flies around chased by fighters for an entire episode and is never destroyed, much less even apparently receive a scratch, even though it literally flew through a giant minefield earlier in the episode and should have taken at least some damage from that. And as I joked in my review video, though it wasn't really a joke, if I could pick what the finale was all about, what story it would follow, I'd take a whole episode of Baylan roaming this new planet, searching for whatever he thinks is out there and encountering who knows what along the way. I'd take that over watching characters that, yes, I love and enjoy, characters like Ahsoka, Ezra, Sabine, and Thrawn, partake in some sort of battle where Thrawn will have to get the win and where none of them are going to die as he does, because we'll no doubt see them all again later. They'll all be used again and again and again. Well, that's all I got for this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think about all this. Is the plot armor in this show just too much? Are there no stakes in this? And is that why Baylan is perhaps the most interesting character we've got in a long time? Because he doesn't have the plot armor to save him, and there are indeed stakes when it comes to what he's up to. Whatever you do think, though, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.